Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today, we're going to be looking at something that is very foundational to the human experience, and that is intimacy, but not necessarily the romantic kind.
Right.
We're talking about intimacy just in general, and we've got three sources for this.
Okay.
We have Healthline,
Okay.
we have Authentic Intimacy,
Interesting.
and we have Very Well Mind.
Okay.
So all three of these kind of come at it from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah.
But I think we can synthesize all of them
Sure.
into a
Yeah.
pretty cool overview for you guys.
Yeah. Well.
So right off the bat, Healthline really wants to emphasize that intimacy does not equal sex.
Right.
And that is
That's
something
a big one.
that is huge EE.
Yeah.
Because so often when we hear that word, we automatically think of sex.
Right. Or romance.
But they break it down into 5 different categories.
Five.
Five: emotional, intellectual,
Mm-hmm.
physical, experiential, and spiritual intimacy.
Wow. That's it's amazing to think that there are so many different ways to be intimate with someone.
Right.
And they all have like different levels.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like,
Physical intimacy
yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean sex.
Right. Like a hug with a friend.
It's different from
Yeah.
a handshake with a colleague.
Exactly.
Totally, yeah.
Or a high five
Yeah.
with a teammate.
Exactly. So it's the same type of intimacy, but the depth changes everything.
I think that's a really important distinction. And I
Yeah.
think it's something that we don't always think about.
Right.
You know, we just kind of lump it all into one category.
Right.
But when you really start to break it down, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, there's actually
So many nuances to this.
so many different ways to connect with people.
Yeah, totally. I was thinking about this.
Yeah.
I have a friend, and we decided we were going to paint her apartment.
Okay.
And we spent an entire weekend together
Okay.
painting this apartment.
Uh-huh.
And we weren't particularly close before that,
Mm-hmm.
but just being in that space together and problem solving, like
Working together.
where to put the drop cloth and
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah, totally.
And we end up having some really deep conversations
Yeah.
and feeling much closer afterward.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it wasn't romantic in any way,
Right.
but it definitely was intimate.
It was a shared experience.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're letting someone into your space,
Yes.
like literally into your home.
Yeah.
And you're working together towards a common goal.
Right. And that speaks to what Very Well Mind was talking about.
Okay.
It's the Latin root of the word intimacy, intimus,
Oh, interesting.
which means innermost.
Okay.
So it's really about letting someone into your into your inner sanctum, into that inner space,
I like that.
and trusting them with that vulnerability.
Right. And being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like letting them see your flaws.
Yeah. And all of that.
And that is something that Authentic Intimacy and Healthline both say
Okay.
that we're really afraid of.
Afraid of intimacy.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because we're all carrying around baggage.
Right. Past hurts.
Past hurts, insecurities.
Yeah.
You know, we've all been hurt.
Yeah. We've all been there.
So it makes sense that we would want to protect ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
But Authentic Intimacy makes this point that by hiding parts of ourselves, even from those closest to us,
Yeah.
we actually prevent true intimacy from developing.
Right. You're putting up a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to connect
Yeah.
while wearing armor.
It's like you can't really get close.
You can't really hug
Yeah, you can't.
Right,
You can't really connect.
with armor on.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So how do we start to shed that armor?
Right.
Because it sounds like that's key
That's the key
to
to
building
real intimacy
real intimacy, not just
in romantic relationships, but in all areas of our lives.
right, like with friends and family and coworkers.
Yeah. So where do we even begin?
Well, I think Healthline had a really good suggestion, and that is
Sure.
to recognize our patterns.
Our patterns.
Yeah, like what are the things that make you shut down
Oh.
emotionally? Like
Well,
when do you tend to push people away?
okay.
And once you understand those patterns, you can start to challenge them.
So it's about making a conscious choice
Exactly.
to be more open and vulnerable,
Yeah, and it's not easy.
even when it feels scary.
Right. It takes courage
Yeah.
to be vulnerable.
But vulnerability is not weakness.
It's not.
In fact, my MindSight's research that shows that vulnerability is actually a key ingredient
Wow.
for building trust
Interesting.
and fostering emotional connection.
Okay, so it's actually a strength.
It is a strength.
Yeah.
And think about it.
Yeah.
We tend to connect more deeply with people who let us see their imperfections.
Right. They're more relatable.
They're more relatable.
Yeah.
They're more human. They're more trustworthy.
Exactly.
Because we're all imperfect.
Yeah, we all have flaws.
So when someone lets us see that,
Yeah.
we're like, okay.
You're being real with me.
Right.
You're being genuine.
I can trust you.
But it's still scary.
Yeah,
It's still scary.
It's not easy to do.
And authentic intimacy makes this really interesting point.
Okay.
That even Jesus, with all of his divinity, was selective about who he allowed into his inner circle.
That's true.
So maybe it's not about being open and vulnerable with everyone,
right,
but about choosing wisely.
Choosing wisely. Yeah.
Who we let into that inner sanctum.
That's a good point.
Of our hearts and minds, and then being fully present and authentic.
Yes.
With those people.
That's beautifully said.
So how do we nurture intimacy?
Right.
In those chosen relationships? Yeah, like across all those different categories that we talked about.
Right, because it sounds like it's not something that just happens passively.
It's something you have to work at.
Yeah, it's something you have to actively cultivate.
Yeah, like a garden.
Yeah, like a garden.
You have to tend to it.
Yes. So where do we even begin with that?
I think a good starting point is just making time for each other.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds simple, right? But like in our busy lives, it's easy to just let those connections.
Yeah, you get caught up in work and errands and
social media,
and all of a sudden it's been a week since you've even had some real conversation.
And that's where Very Well Mine suggests like actually scheduling intimacy.
Ooh.
I know it sounds a little weird.
Scheduling intimacy.
But like putting it on the calendar.
Okay.
Whether it's like a weekly date night.
Yeah.
Or even just like 30 minutes of just dedicated conversation time.
Yeah.
It sends a powerful message that you're prioritizing that connection.
So instead of it being like an afterthought.
Exactly.
Like a non-negotiable. It's like a doctor's appointment.
It's in the calendar.
It's in the calendar.
We're doing this.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be these grand gestures either.
Okay.
Healthline was talking about like the power of those small everyday moments. Like having breakfast together. Without your phones.
Yeah.
Taking a walk after dinner, cuddling on the couch before bed.
Right.
Like these little rituals, they can be really powerful for building closeness.
And that makes me think of what authentic intimacy was talking about with the love languages.
Yes, love languages.
Finding ways to express love
that
resonate with your partner's specific needs.
Absolutely, because we all experience love differently.
Right.
And so it's important to understand what makes your partner feel loved.
So it's like learning their emotional dialect.
I love that analogy.
Right.
It's like you can say I love you in 100 different ways, but it's about finding the way that really speaks to their heart.
And it's a two-way street, right?
Absolutely.
It's about being receptive to your partner's expressions of love.
Even if it's not in your preferred love language.
Right.
Recognizing the intention behind their actions.
So it sounds like communication is a big theme here.
It is huge.
Not just expressing love, but really listening, being present.
Being present, yeah.
Understanding each other's needs.
And Very Well, Mind talks about effective communication as a skill.
Oh.
That requires practice and intentionality.
Interesting.
Because it's not just about talking. It's about truly listening, paying attention, not just to the words, but also to the unspoken emotions and needs.
Right, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in our own stuff.
Exactly.
And to not really be
present.
Present with the other person.
And when we don't feel heard or understood, it creates distance and resentment.
Yeah, it can build up over time.
Absolutely. And that's why Healthline suggests practicing active listening.
Active listening.
Like asking clarifying questions.
Okay.
Reflecting back what you're hearing. Validating your partner's feelings.
Even if you don't agree.
Even if you don't agree.
Okay.
Because it's about creating that safe space where they feel comfortable expressing themselves.
Without judgment.
Exactly.
What about conflict, though?
Oh, yeah.
Because conflict is a part of
every relationship.
Every relationship.
Right.
So how do we navigate that?
Well, mine made a really interesting point.
Okay.
That conflict, when handled constructively, can actually strengthen intimacy.
Really?
Yeah. It's about shifting the perspective.
Okay.
From seeing conflict as a battle to win to an opportunity for growth and understanding.
So it's not about who's right or wrong.
Exactly.
It's about understanding each other's perspectives.
Yes. And finding a solution that works for both of you.
So compromise.
Compromise, letting go of the need to be right.
and prioritizing the relationship over your own ego.
Easier said than done, though.
It is. It takes practice.
Yeah.
And patience.
Healthline brought up a really good point about stress.
Stress. Yeah.
Because life throws curveballs.
All the time.
You get overwhelmed. And suddenly, all those good intentions about quality time and communication,
they go out the window.
They go out the window.
Yeah, when we're stressed, it just depletes our reserves.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much harder to show up.
For ourselves.
For ourselves and for our loved ones.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
If we're running on fumes, we just don't have the energy.
You don't have the bandwidth.
To nurture those relationships.
Which is why self-care is so important.
Right.
It's not selfish to prioritize your well-being.
You got to take care of yourself.
You have to take care of yourself.
In order to take care of others.
Exactly. Because when you feel good,
you're better equipped to connect with others.
So finding that balance between self-care
and giving to others.
It's a dance.
It's a dance for sure.
So we've talked about communication, conflict resolution.
Stress management.
Stress management. It's starting to feel like
a lot.
Building intimacy requires a whole skill set.
It kind of does.
Yeah.
But like any skill, you can learn it.
Okay.
And improve with practice.
And it's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly.
There will be times when we nail it.
Yes.
And times when we fall flat.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's where self-compassion comes in.
Self-compassion.
Like being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
When you make mistakes.
Because we're going to make mistakes.
We all do.
Yeah.
We're all a work in progress.
So I'm curious.
Yeah.
Are there any specific strategies that you found to be really helpful
in your own life
for cultivating intimacy?
That's a great question.
One that comes to mind is something that Healthline mentioned.
Okay.
Tackling a project together.
Yeah, tackling a project together.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that look like?
So it could be anything that like aligns with your shared interests and requires you to like collaborate and communicate and maybe compromise a little bit along the way.
Okay.
So like renovating a room in your house, learning a new language together, volunteering for a cause you both care about.
Yeah.
Training for a marathon.
Okay.
Like the options are kind of endless.
Right. So it's that sense of shared purpose.
Yeah.
That feeling of accomplishment.
Exactly.
When you overcome those challenges together.
And you're building something tangible.
Yes.
That represents your bond.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you create those memories.
Yeah. Inside jokes.
Inside jokes.
Like all those little things.
Those moments.
That strengthen that bond.
Yeah. It's like that feeling you get.
Yeah.
After you've like conquered a challenging hike with a friend. You're exhausted.
Yeah.
You're sweaty.
Maybe a little bruised.
Maybe a little bruised.
But you did it.
You did it together.
Together.
And there's that bond.
That shared experience.
That shared experience.
That's what it's all about.
And you know, that reminds me of what Very Well Mind was talking about.
Yeah.
With experiential intimacy.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be grand adventures.
No, it can be small things.
Right.
Like cooking a meal together.
Yeah.
Trying a new recipe.
Going to a concert.
Yeah, exploring a new part of town.
Like all those little things.
Yeah, exactly.
Build up. And Healthline also suggests just unplugging.
Oh, unplugging.
And focusing on each other.
Yes.
Which sounds so simple.
I know it sounds so basic.
But it's so hard.
But it's so important.
In our world.
Yeah, because we're constantly bombarded.
Constantly bombarded.
With information and stimulation.
So to just be present.
Yeah, to give someone your undivided attention.
It's a gift.
It is a gift.
It's like creating a little bubble.
Yeah.
Where the outside world fades away.
I love that.
And you can just be yourselves.
Then just connect.
Just connect without any distractions.
Exactly.
And again, it doesn't have to be a grand gesture.
Yeah.
It could just be like having dinner together with no phones.
Yeah. Tech-free meals.
Tech-free meals.
Putting your phones in a basket when you walk in the door.
I love that.
Yeah, creating phone-free zones.
And remembering that this is a process.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing...
It's a journey.
Journey.
It's not a destination.
It's not a one-time fix.
It's a commitment.
Yes.
To showing up for each other.
Day after day.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard.
Even when you're tired.
Even when you'd rather scroll through your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about choosing connection.
Yes.
Over convenience.
Presence.
Over distraction.
Vulnerability over self-protection.
Beautifully said.
And it's remembering that all those little things...
That those small moments...
Add up. They add up.
To create a strong foundation.
For any relationship.
And I think that's a beautiful place to wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah.
On intimacy.
Intimacy is a choice.
Yes.
It's a decision we make moment to moment.
Yeah.
To prioritize connection.
To be vulnerable.
To let ourselves be known.
To let ourselves be loved.
And loved for who we truly are.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
It's been a pleasure.
I think it's been really enlightening.
Yeah, I hope so.
And we hope you guys out there listening have found it enlightening as well.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.